Okay, so in this video I'll just be going start to finish with from activation to usage and plotting of a quantified Western Blot for the Western Blot Utility app. So basically what I did is I just opened the executable that I downloaded from the website, and then we come up to this activate software page. I've already entered my email and license key, so you'll have to get your own license key and enter those, and then you just hit activate, and then it brings you to this blank screen. And then from there, you can just hit File, Open, and navigate to where your images are stored, so the folder your images are stored in, and I've just created this example folder. You can name the experiment if you want. I'll just name this demo, and if you wanted to put a description with experimental details in that description folder, you can definitely do that. And that'll be stored in the metadata when you close and reopen this. And then you can just navigate to all these images on the left-hand side here. So just going one by one, I have a number of them in here. These are just taken from online with the links here if you want to know where I got these images from. But we'll start with the first image. Basically, all you need to do to sort of automatically populate where the bands are on the image is go ahead and circle the first band. This first lane here is the ladder in this image, so I'll skip that one. But this one didn't do a very good job of quantifying, so I'll just have to sort of manually add some ROIs to the other side of the image here. So anywhere you click on the image will add an ROI of the exact same size as the original one you drew. And then, oops, if I added an extra one somewhere I didn't want to, then I can right-click and delete, and then you can also just use the delete button on your keyboard to delete the last ROI on the image. Be careful with this, because if you delete an ROI, it doesn't always delete the associated, or it doesn't delete the associated lane. So if you also want to remove the lane, you'll need to go into this panel on the right here and go ahead and just hit right-click and then remove the lane. So this specific image I don't have a loading control for, so I would just leave that as none or NA. But if you do have an image with a loading control, which I do have for this one, you can circle the first band, and then it automatically, this one did a better job of automatically quantifying those ROIs. And I'll go ahead and also remove the lanes. So when I go to this loading control, the only option will be none or NA, because I haven't quantified the loading control image yet. So we'll just go ahead and go over to this image and do that. And that did a good job of automatically quantifying those bands as well. And so now we have the same number of lanes in this loading control image as we do for the experimental image. And so now it gives it that as an option for the loading control. So I'll go ahead and choose that. And now it has normalized the raw intensities from this image to this loading control image. And then also, if you wanted to have relative values from lane to lane, you can flag one of them as your internal control lane. So for example, you were doing a drug treatment and your lane 1 was a vehicle only control, you could flag that as control, and then you could have relative values from your vehicle. And you can make any lane your vehicle control. So let's say my vehicle's in the middle, I can make that lane 5, or if lane 1 and lane 5 are vehicle, it'll normalize your values to lane 1, normalize your values to lane 5, and then average them, and that's the normalized value that shows up right here. So you can go through and quantify every image you have in the folder. Sometimes when there's not a lot of signal in the lane, it struggles to like automatically quantify those bands, but that's why you have the option to manually add an ROI. And then you can manually move them with the mouse too if they're like not quite in the right position, whether you've manually added it or it's automatically populated it. And then once you're done quantifying all your images, so I have ROIs on all these images, You know, you can go in and you can choose a loading control, or you can leave it without a loading control, or sorry, a lane control. In any image you want, you can choose whatever lane to control you want, so I'll just go ahead and choose lane control for that one. And for this one as well. And then to get your data, you can either hit File Export, you can export the mean values, you can export the sum values, so those would be the raw intensities from the image unnormalized to loading or lane controls, or you can export the normalized intensities. So I'll just do the normalized intensities, and that, I've already done this once, so I'll add a 1 to it. And then additionally, you can audit a specific image if you'd like. So if you wanted to see from start to finish what the raw values are, what the ROI sizes and areas and background values are, to really make sure you're understanding how the math is being done. So we'll just go ahead and audit this image too. It'll give you the title of the file you have in there and then an underscore audit, and it'll output that CSV. And now we can just pull those up and see what those look like. So in the normalized intensity file, let's see, so for this one, I only chose a few to be normalized. So this one had a lane control, this one had a lane control, and then this one had a lane and a loading control. The other ones, I didn't have them normalized in any way. So if I wanted to get the values for those, I would need to output the mean intensity CSV or the sum intensity CSV. But with these, you could go ahead and, if you wanted to, just chart it in Excel. And you could have your values there, you know, sample 1 through 9. So that's a good way to see what your values are. And then now let's go ahead and look at what's in the audit. So this, from start to finish, the first lane or the first row will say what's in each lane, and then the second row gives an explanation of how those values are calculated. These are pretty detailed explanations. And you can just sort of explore how the math is done here, especially with the background subtraction and with the intensity quantifications and the normalization. So this is a good way to fully understand what's going on in the background of this script. And then the last thing we'll take a look at is this help option, where there's four options underneath this help button. You can click on documentation, which will take you to the documentation website, which has all the installation and usage instructions. You can go to the